How much longer will you choose to be his shadow, dimming your light so he can shine? How much longer will you beg for the love that should have been given freely? If you've ever felt like you're pouring your heart into an empty vessel, this is your moment. Stop right now. Hit the like button, not for me, but for yourself. Let this action be your first declaration that you're done waiting, done hoping, and done playing by his rules. And while you're at it, subscribe, because this isn't just another video, it's the start of your freedom. Welcome back to the channel, my queens. You're here because something in you knows it's time for a change. You've given your all to someone who's done nothing but take, and now you're left wondering if there's anything left for yourself. Let me tell you this. There is. But first, you have to stop giving it away to someone who doesn't see your worth. You've handed your crown to a man who doesn't even deserve to bow in your presence. A man who has turned you from a queen into a servant of his ego. And now, it's time to take that crown back. Think about this. When was the last time he made you feel seen, loved, or cherished without you having to fight for it? When was the last time he showed up for you without needing something in return? If you're struggling to answer, that's your sign. You've been caught in a cycle, a game you didn't even realize you were playing. He tells you to jump, and you ask, how high? But here's the truth. No matter how high you jump, it will never be enough for him. Let me share a story. There was a woman. Let's call her Mia. Mia was in love with a man who always kept her on edge. He gave her just enough to keep her hoping, but never enough to make her feel secure. She stayed because she thought, if I just try harder, he'll see how much I care. He'll change. But he didn't. Instead, he got comfortable. He knew she'd always be there, no matter what. One day, Mia decided enough was enough. She disappeared. She didn't announce it. She didn't explain. She simply walked away. At first, he didn't notice. He thought she was playing hard to get. But as the days turned into weeks and the silence grew louder, he began to panic. He started calling, texting, even showing up at her door. But by then, Mia was gone. Not just physically, but emotionally. And when he realized he had lost her, his pride crumbled. That's the power of disappearing. This isn't just about walking away. It's about reclaiming your power. When you disappear, you create a void so loud it forces him to confront the emptiness he's been avoiding. He thrives on your attention, your forgiveness, your willingness to stay. But when you take all that away, you don't just leave him alone. You leave him with himself. And trust me, that's a reality his ego can't handle. You might be thinking, but I love him. Let me tell you something. Love isn't supposed to feel like this. Love isn't supposed to drain you, break you, or make you question your worth. What you're holding on to isn't love. It's hope. And hope can be dangerous when it's tied to someone who doesn't deserve it. Here's your reality check. He's not going to change. He's not going to wake up one day and realize your worth because he already sees it. That's why he works so hard to keep you small, to keep you doubting yourself. The moment you realize your power, the moment you stop playing his game, is the moment his world begins to fall apart. So say this with me. I am done. Now, don't just whisper it to yourself. Write it in the comments. Yes, you. Don't scroll past this moment. Let the universe see it. Let him feel it. And most importantly, let you own it. Writing it isn't just a comment. It's a promise to yourself, a declaration that you're taking your life back. Don't let this moment slip away. Prove to yourself that you're ready to let go. Write it now, and let those 3 words become the start of everything you deserve. And this is just the beginning. In the next section, We're diving deep into the silent strategy that will shatter his pride and set you free. Stay tuned. It's time to rise. 1. Disappear. Cut the power to his ego. So, my dear, let's stop pretending. Let's stop calling it love when all it's ever done is break you. Who told you that love was supposed to hurt like this? Who fed you the lie that patience, silence, and suffering were the price you had to pay to keep a man? Let me guess. They called it loyalty. They told you, be a good woman, wait for him to change, forgive him, stay by his side no matter what. And you believed them, didn't you? You gave your all, and now here you are, feeling empty, shattered, and wondering if it's all your fault. It's not your fault, my dear, but it is your responsibility to wake up. They sold you a fairy tale, but what they gave you was a trap. The movies, the books, the love songs, they all made you believe that if you just love hard enough, if you just try a little more, he'll finally become the man you deserve. But here's the truth. Love doesn't work like that. Love isn't pain dressed up as hope. Love isn't staying silent while someone chips away at your soul. Real love doesn't make you question your worth. Let me say it louder. Real love doesn't feel like this. And yes, I know it hurts. Walking away hurts. Letting go of the dreams you had, the life you imagined, the man you thought he could be. It's excruciating. It feels like ripping away a part of yourself. But here's what you need to understand. The pain you're feeling isn't punishment. It's growth. It's the fire that burns away the lies you've been told, so you can finally see the truth. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman I knew. We'll call her Sarah. Sarah spent 5 years in a relationship with a man who loved to keep her guessing. One day, he was her everything, her soulmate. The next day, he was cold, distant, unreachable. Sarah stayed because she thought love was supposed to be hard. She thought the struggle was proof of her commitment. But the more she gave, the less she got back. She lost herself in the process. One day, Sarah decided she was done. She didn't send a long text. She didn't wait for closure. She disappeared. At first, the pain was unbearable. She missed him, even though she knew he wasn't good for her. She cried. She doubted herself. But with every passing day, she grew stronger. She started journaling. She joined a fitness class. She found herself again. And when he finally came crawling back, begging for another chance, she didn't even recognize the woman she had become. You can be Sarah. You can rise from this pain. But first, you have to stop running back to what's breaking you. Every time you check his social media, every time you respond to his texts, every time you give him one more chance, you're pouring gasoline on a fire that's burning you alive. Stop. Stop feeding the flames. Let the fire die out. Let the silence grow. This isn't revenge, my dear. This isn't about punishing him. This is about survival. This is about saving yourself. Because if you don't, who will? He's not coming to rescue you. He's not going to suddenly wake up and become the man you need. That man doesn't exist. But you exist. And you are so much more than the version of yourself you've allowed him to see. The pain you feel right now. That's the price of freedom. It's the price of reclaiming your life. Let it hurt. Let it break you. Because from that pain, from that breaking, you will rise. Say this with me. I rise from this pain. Write it in the comments. Let the world know. Let yourself believe, and let him feel the silence of your transformation. And stay with me, because this is just the start. In the next section, we're going deeper into why letting go isn't just about him. It's about breaking the chains that society has wrapped around you. It's time to rise above the lies they told you about love and become the woman you were always meant to be. Stay tuned. Your rise has just begun. 2. Detach. Pull the plug on his games. So, my dear, let's get real about what's happening here. You've been dancing to his tune, haven't you? Every time he calls, you answer. Every time he pulls away, you run after him. He whispers sweet words, makes empty promises, and you're right there, ready to believe him again. But let me ask you this. What has he actually done for you? When has he shown up for you the way you show up for him? He's been pulling your strings, and you've been spinning, jumping, bending to his will. He's the puppet master, and you've let him turn you into a puppet, hanging on every move he makes. But what happens if you cut the strings? What happens if you stop dancing to his tune? Let me tell you, the puppet master loses his power. Without you, the strings fall limp and the game is over. You might think, but I love him. Let me tell you something hard to hear. Love doesn't look like this. Love doesn't feel like this. Love doesn't mean sacrificing your self-respect for scraps of attention. You're not in love. You're attached. And there's a big difference. Love is free, flowing, and mutual. Attachment is a leash, and you've been holding on to one that he's not even tugging anymore. Why are you holding on to a man who's already let go of you? Every time you forgive him, every time you wait for him, every time you hope he'll change, you're tightening the leash around your own neck. He doesn't even have to try anymore. He knows you'll be there, no matter what. But let me ask you, when was the last time he held on to you the way you're holding on to him? Let me tell you a story. There was a woman we'll call Ava. Ava was in love with a man who kept her in limbo. He'd disappear for days, only to show up with excuses and apologies. And every time she forgave him, she told herself, he's just going through something. He'll change. He loves me. But one day, Ava saw the truth. She realized she was the only one holding on to the relationship. He wasn't pulling the leash. She was dragging him behind her, hoping he'd one day catch up. So, Ava did something she thought she couldn't do. She let go. At first, it hurt. She missed him. She doubted herself. But the more time passed, the more she realized she wasn't missing him. She was missing the idea of what she thought they could be. And without him weighing her down, she started to see herself clearly for the first time in years. She wasn't broken. She wasn't hard to love. She was just with the wrong man. You're not Ava yet, but you can be. You just have to pull the plug. He's been using you, my dear. Using your patience, your forgiveness, your hope as a crutch to keep himself comfortable. He leans on you because it's easier than standing on his own 2 feet. But here's the thing. You're not a crutch. You're not his savior. You're not his fixer. You're not here to carry the weight of his ego, his insecurities, his failures. You've spent so much time trying to hold him up that you've forgotten how to stand tall yourself. Take away the crutch. Let him stumble. Let him fall. It's not your job to catch him. It never was. And yes, it will hurt. Letting go of someone you've built your world around is painful. It's like tearing out a piece of yourself. But let me tell you what hurts more. Staying attached to someone who doesn't value you. Holding on to a man who doesn't hold on to you. The pain of detaching is temporary, but the pain of staying, that's the kind of pain that eats away at your soul every single day. So, what do you do now? You stop answering his calls. You stop checking his social media. You stop wondering if he's thinking about you. Because here's the truth. He's not. He's thinking about himself, the way he always has. And every time you give him a piece of your attention, you're feeding his ego while starving your own self-worth. Detach, my dear. Pull the plug on his games. Stop showing up for a man who wouldn't cross the street for you. Say this with me. I let go. Write it in the comments. Let the universe hear it. Let yourself feel it. Let him notice the silence you leave behind. And this is just the beginning. In the next section, we're diving even deeper into the lies you've been told about love and how to rebuild yourself into the woman you were always meant to be. Stay tuned, my dear. Your rise has only just begun. 3. Destroy. Crush his illusion of control. So, my dear, let's talk about the illusion you've been living in. You've crowned him the king of your world, haven't you? You've built your life around him, made his needs your priority, and convinced yourself that he's worth every tear you've cried. But here's the truth you need to hear. He's no king. He's a fool sitting on a throne he never deserved. And you're the one who placed that crown on his head. It's time to take it back and leave him sitting in the dirt where he belongs. Do you know why he seems so powerful? Because you've handed him the reins. Every time you forgive him, every time you let him get away with another lie, you're giving him more control. He doesn't have to earn your love, your trust, or your time. He just has to exist. And that's the problem, isn't it? He's done the bare minimum, and you've convinced yourself it's enough. But let's pull back the curtain for a moment. Let's expose the truth. Without you, his world falls apart. His ego crumbles. The power he pretends to have, it vanishes the moment you stop feeding it. He's not the strong, confident man you've built him up to be. He's just a shadow, a hollow shell of what he pretends to be. Think about it. When was the last time he truly showed strength? Not the fake bravado, not the charm he uses to pull you back in, but real strength. The kind of strength it takes to love selflessly, to admit his mistakes, to grow and change for the better. Can you name a single moment? Or has he been hiding behind his ego, using your love to prop himself up while giving you nothing in return? Let me tell you a story. There was a woman named Clara. Clara loved a man who thrived on control. He made her feel small, insignificant, like she was lucky just to be in his life. Every time she tried to walk away, he'd pull her back with sweet words and empty promises. But one day, Clara had enough. She realized that every ounce of love she gave him was fuel for his ego. So she stopped. She disappeared. She cut him off completely. At first he acted like it didn't matter, but as the silence grew, his confidence shattered. Without her to build him up, he crumbled. And Clara, she rose. You can do the same. You can take back your power. But first, you have to stop feeding the parasite that is his ego. Every time you answer his calls, every time you forgive his lies, every time you let him back into your life, you're giving him the energy he needs to thrive. Stop. Cut him off. Let him starve. And don't fool yourself into thinking he'll change. He won't. Not for you. Not for anyone. Change doesn't come from desperation. It comes from self-awareness, from facing your own flaws and working to become better. But he's not interested in that. He's only interested in maintaining control, in keeping you in his orbit. So, what happens when you take that control away? What happens when you rip the crown off his head and leave him to face himself? He panics, he spirals, because for the first time he has to confront the truth. He's not as powerful as he thought. Without your love, your forgiveness, your energy, he's nothing. But let's be clear, this isn't about revenge. This isn't about hurting him or making him regret. This is about freeing yourself. When you destroy the illusion of his control, you're not just taking away his power, you're reclaiming your own. You're stepping back into the queen you were always meant to be. Yes, it's going to hurt. Yes, it's going to feel like tearing away a part of yourself. But every time you resist the urge to reach out, every time you choose yourself over him, you're building something stronger. You're creating a version of yourself that doesn't need his validation, his attention, or his love to feel whole. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine him sitting alone, staring at his phone, wondering why you haven't called, why you haven't come back. He'll try to tell himself it doesn't matter. He'll try to move on like he always does. But deep down, he'll feel it. The emptiness, the silence, the void you've left behind. And that's when it hits him. He wasn't the king. You were. So stop playing his game. Stop waiting for him to change. Take away the throne, pull the curtain, and expose his empty ego for what it is. Then walk away and don't look back. Say this with me. I take back my crown. Write it in the comments. Let it be your declaration, your battle cry, your first step toward freedom. Because in the next section, we're going even deeper. We're talking about what happens when you rise, when you rebuild yourself into a woman so powerful, so untouchable, that he becomes nothing more than a distant memory. Stay tuned. Your rise is just beginning. 4. Rebuilding yourself without him. So, my dear, let me ask you something. How much of your life have you put on hold for him? Be honest. How many dreams have you shelved? How many opportunities have you passed up? How much of yourself have you sacrificed? All for a man who can't even show up for you. You told yourself it was love, that it was worth it, that one day he'd realize how much you've given and finally give back. But he didn't, did he? And deep down, you knew he wouldn't. You've been waiting for him to change, for him to love you the way you deserve, for him to become the man you believed he could be. But here's the hard truth, my dear. He's not coming. He's not going to wake up one day and suddenly see the light. And every second you spend waiting for him is a second you lose for yourself. Think about it. What could you have done with all that time you wasted on him? You could have started a business, learned a new skill, traveled the world. Instead, you sat there, hoping, waiting, giving, and getting nothing in return. Stop. Stop waiting. Because he's not worth it, but you are. Here's something you need to remember. The best revenge is a life well lived. The best way to prove to yourself, to him, and to the world that you don't need him is to live a life so full, so beautiful, so unapologetically yours that even the thought of going back feels absurd. Picture this. Your life is a garden. For years you've been watering dead plants. You've poured all your love, time and energy into something that will never bloom. And while you were busy tending to those weeds, your garden became overgrown, neglected, a shadow of what it could have been. But here's the good news. You can start over. You can pull the weeds, clear the space, and plant something new. It won't happen overnight. Building something beautiful takes time, effort, and patience. But every seed you plant, every step you take to reclaim your life, will be worth it. Because this time, the love you pour into your garden will be for you, not for someone who never appreciated it. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman, I'll call her Anna. Anna spent 7 years in a toxic relationship with a man who constantly made her feel small. He told her she wasn't good enough, that she'd never find anyone better. that she was lucky to have him. And for a long time she believed him. But one day, something in her snapped. She realized that staying with him was slowly killing her spirit, so she left. At first, Anna didn't know what to do with herself. She felt lost, like a ship without a captain. But instead of running back to him, she decided to focus on herself. She signed up for a painting class she'd always wanted to try. She started hiking on weekends, something she used to love, but had given up because he didn't like it. She reconnected with old friends and even made new ones. A year later, Anna's life looked completely different. She had started selling her paintings online and was planning a solo trip to Europe. And her ex? He tried to come back, of course. He couldn't believe she had moved on. But by then, Anna was a completely different woman. She didn't need him anymore. She didn't even want him. That can be you, my dear. You can rise from this, stronger and more radiant than ever. But first, you have to make the choice to stop waiting and start living. Here's how you do it. Start small. You don't have to have it all figured out right away. Just take one step. Write down something you've always wanted to do, but never did because of him. Maybe it's a class you've been interested in, a hobby you used to love, or a place you've always wanted to visit. Then go do it. Maybe you've dreamed of traveling, but never had the courage to go alone. Book that trip. Start small if you need to. A weekend getaway to a nearby city. But go. Experience the freedom of doing something just for yourself. Or maybe you've had goals you put on hold because you were too busy worrying about him. Write them down. Break them into smaller steps, and then take the first one. It doesn't matter how small it is, just start. And don't forget to take care of yourself along the way. Rebuilding your life isn't just about achieving goals. It's about finding joy in the process. Treat yourself to a spa day. Buy yourself flowers. Start journaling your thoughts and feelings. It's a powerful way to heal and rediscover who you are. You'll have moments of doubt. There will be days when the pain feels unbearable, when you're tempted to go back to the comfort of what's familiar, even if it's toxic. But every time that happens, remind yourself of this. You're not going back to water dead plants. You're planting something new, something beautiful, something that will bloom for you. And as you take these steps, something incredible will happen. You'll start to see yourself in a new light. You'll remember the woman you were before he made you doubt her. You'll rediscover the strength, the beauty, the brilliance that's always been inside you. And one day, you'll wake up and realize that the life you've built is so full, so vibrant, so completely yours, that the thought of him no longer holds any power over you. Say this with me. I plant new seeds. Write it in the comments. Let the world know that you're done watering dead plants. Let yourself believe that you're capable of creating something beautiful. And stay with me, because we're not done yet. In the next section, we're going to talk about what happens when you rise so high that even the memory of him fades into irrelevance. It's time to become the woman you were always meant to be. Let's rise together. 5. The outcome. His ego's collapse, your rise. So, my dear, let's talk about the moment his world begins to crumble, the moment he feels the emptiness you left behind. For so long, he's thrived on your presence, your attention, your love. You've been his safety net, his constant, his anchor. But what happens when that anchor lets go? What happens when the woman he thought he could always count on vanishes, leaving nothing but silence in her wake? Let me tell you what happens. His ego collapses. He's used to you being there, used to you picking up the pieces, forgiving his mistakes, and filling the void in his life. But now, that void is all he has left. And trust me, it will drown him. Every missed call, every unanswered text, every day he doesn't see your name on his screen will haunt him. Because here's the thing, he didn't appreciate you, but he depended on you. You were the glue holding his fragile ego together, and now that glue is gone. You see, men like him, men who play games with your heart, aren't as strong as they pretend to be. They build their confidence, their identity, their power on the control they have over you. Every time you stayed, every time you forgave, you fed his ego. You made him feel like he was untouchable. But now you've taken all that away. Now he's left staring into the void, and it terrifies him. But let's be clear, this isn't about him. This isn't about teaching him a lesson or hoping he'll realize your worth. This is about you. You're not just walking away. You're rising. You're becoming the woman he never thought you could be. The woman he'll spend the rest of his life regretting. Imagine this. You were once his anchor, always steady, always there. Now, you're a star. A radiant, untouchable force, shining so brightly that he can't even reach you. He'll look up at the sky, see your light, and know he let the best thing in his life slip away. And by then, you won't even care. Let me tell you about a woman I knew. Let's call her Anna. Anna was in love with a man who treated her like an option. He came and went as he pleased, always expecting her to be there when he decided to show up. And for years, she was. But one day, Anna decided she was done. She didn't argue. She didn't beg. She just disappeared. She blocked his number, deleted his photos, and stopped looking for closure. At first, he didn't notice. He thought she'd come back, like she always did. But as weeks turned into months, he started to panic. He reached out through friends, sent long apologetic messages, even showed up at her work. But by then, Anna was a completely different woman. She'd started her own business, traveled to places she'd always dreamed of, and built a life so full that she didn't have room for him anymore. That's the power of walking away. That's the power of becoming the woman he can't touch. And you, my dear, have that same power. But you have to stop playing his game. You have to stop letting him dictate the rules. He's been playing checkers, quick moves, shallow strategies, all designed to keep you guessing. But you're playing chess now. You're thinking 3 steps ahead, planning your moves with purpose. This isn't about reacting to him anymore. This is about creating a life so extraordinary that he becomes irrelevant. So, how do you do it? You rise. You focus on yourself. You build a life so full, so radiant, that it doesn't leave room for his games. Start small. Take a class. Pick up a hobby. Surround yourself with people who uplift you. Reconnect with the dreams you put on hold for him. And every time you feel the urge to reach out, to check on him, to go back, remember this: he's not your responsibility. His happiness, his ego, his life, they're not yours to fix. Let him deal with the fallout of his own choices. Because here's the hard truth: he's not missing you. He's missing the control. He's missing the power your presence gave him. And the longer you stay silent, the more he has to face himself. That's his punishment. Not your anger, not your words, but the cold, undeniable reality that he lost you. And here's the best part. While he's drowning in the void you left behind, you're rising higher than you ever thought possible. You're becoming unstoppable. Every step you take away from him is a step toward the life you deserve. And one day, you'll look back and wonder why you ever settled for less. So, say this with me: I rise above him. Write it in the comments. Let the universe hear it. Let yourself believe it, and let him feel the silence of your transformation. And stay with me, my dear, because this is just the beginning. In the next section, we're diving into what it really means to rebuild your life, not just to move on, but to create something so extraordinary that you become untouchable. It's time to rise, and I'll show you how. So, my dear, let's end this once and for all. He never deserved you. Not your love, not your time, not the pieces of yourself you gave away trying to fix what was never yours to fix. You've spent too long making excuses for him, justifying his behavior, and convincing yourself that maybe, just maybe, he'd wake up and realize your worth. But here's the truth. He already knew your worth. That's why he worked so hard to keep you doubting it. Because a woman who knows her power is a woman he can't control. Stop letting him define your story. You are not his pawn, his toy, or his backup plan. You are not here to wait for scraps of his attention, to patch up his broken ego, or to serve as the safety net he falls back on when his world starts to crumble. You are a queen. Act like it. Take your throne. Take back what you've given away so freely, and guard it like the treasure it is. Because, my dear, it's not just about leaving him behind. It's about reclaiming everything he tried to take from you. Imagine this. You, rising like the sun, too bright to be dimmed, too radiant to be ignored, too powerful to be held back by the weight of his lies. That's the woman you're becoming, the woman he will regret losing for the rest of his life. Not because he suddenly realizes he loves you, but because he'll finally understand that he can never have you again. You are unstoppable. You are untouchable. You are free. And yes, it's going to hurt. Yes, it's going to feel like the weight of the world is pressing down on your chest. But every day you choose yourself. Every time you take a step forward, you're proving to yourself and to him that you're stronger than he ever gave you credit for. This is the moment you stop waiting for his approval. This is the moment you stop begging for his love. This is the moment you rise. Say it with me. I take my throne. Write it in the comments. Let it be your declaration, your battle cry, your promise to yourself that you will never settle again. Let him see it. Let the world feel it. And most importantly, let yourself believe it. And remember this. You don't rise for him. You don't rise for revenge or to prove a point. You rise for you. You rise because the woman you're becoming deserves a life so full, so extraordinary, that it eclipses the pain of what you left behind. This isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning. Shine so brightly that the memory of him fades into nothing. You're a queen, and it's time to rule your life like one. Let's rise together.